I'm super excited to introduce our next speaker, and I'm going to have my little cheat sheet here so that I don't misrepresent him. He's a senior brand manager at Brown-Forman, where he oversees the Jack Daniel's craft portfolio for North America. So everybody's all excited now because I said Jack Daniel's. Matt considers himself middle-brained, which I thought was a very interesting description, which means that he straddles the fence between the creative right side and the left side of the quantitative, so like the perfect blend for a brander. Let's see, some interesting factoids about him. He enjoys being a father, and he likes honing his knowledge of history. He's a lifelong fan of the Reds and the Bengals. I'm really sorry to hear that. But he has been fortunate enough to witness both a World Series and a Super Bowl victory. How long ago was that? That was a while, so we're hoping for another one, right? He is a native of Lexington. He resides in Louisville. He has a BA in economics from Center College, which for those who know me know that that's pretty cool to me. And he has a master's in applied economics from University of Cincinnati. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Matt Blevins.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's really good to be here. Yes, I did watch the Reds win the World Series in 1990, and I didn't watch the Bengals win, unfortunately, but I watched they did play in the 80s. And I was coming of age. I thought, yes, I'm a Bengals and a Reds fan. How many years later are we? Nothing's happened since, so unfortunately, I'm a long-suffering Bengals fan and Reds fan, but I have hope for this year, a lot of hope. I want to thank you guys for having me. This has been a great conference. I've been to a few now in the past month or so, and it's nice to have this mix-up of speaking and going and doing and networking with all of you. So really happy to be here, and you've thought of every detail. I thought about this. The lunch was great. You cannot eat a taco without being authentic. I mean, when you're sitting there eating it, you're all there. You're all out there. So you thought of every detail. I've titled the presentation, Staying True to an Authentic Brand. I've been fortunate to work on Jack Daniel's now for 10 years and have sort of definitely adopted it and enjoyed working on it. Authenticity is something that is very desired today. I've been to, like I said, a few conferences. There are books written about it, and I think we all recognize that consumers are demanding it more and more and more with the rise of social media, with more and more information. It makes it almost table stakes, and so everyone is interested in getting it. So I thought I would start with, in my way of technologically, how do I define this? I knew I was going to speak. Well, I'll go to the first level, the highest level for me of technology. Siri, what is authenticity? And Siri said, here's what I found. But she didn't really know. She didn't really know. She asked Google what Google thought. And so I thought, okay, Siri's the highest level. I'll go down a level to Google. It's been around a little bit longer. But I didn't just want a definition from Google, so I thought I would do a bit of a thought experiment and just type it in and see what kind of results that I got. And so I typed it in. And there you see I got 29 million records that reference authentic. And it took Google, I think it's funny they still say this, 0.22 seconds. I think we all get it. They're very fast. 29 million records. But that was, pretty impressive number, 29 million. What about the opposite? Because we know what's out there a lot is fakeness. Well, there's 33 million results, and they got to that a lot faster, 20% faster, 0.18 seconds. So 29 million authentic, 33 million fake. Feels about right. We live in this world of give and take and push and pull, 50-50 almost. This tells you how much information's out there, but I wanted to know a little bit more. I wanted to know, what people are interested in and how often they're searching. And there's a great tool on Google called Google Trends, if you're familiar with it. And you can do brand battles, and you can do battles between two terms. So I put these two terms to battle, and here's what I found. Oh no. The people who care about authenticity, that red line is fakeness. And pardon me, I call that the tidal wave of bullshit that's out there in our world today. And it is just swamping the little lake of authenticity. And it made me feel like this is probably reality, actually. This is what reality is, because authenticity is highly valued and rarely found. So that was Google. Good thought experiment. I went down another level back to a book. It's this new thing. It's a real book. Opened it up, and it was a dictionary, and it said, here is what it means to be authentic: conforming to fact, and therefore worthy of trust, reliance, or belief. There's a big word in there. Anyone want to guess what the big word is? Trust. We talked about 4 brands earlier that they all said there was some loss of trust. That trust word is something that is more important than profits, more important. That's what all of us as marketers and as brands want to earn from our consumers. So, I really liked this dictionary definition, and I thought that's really what it's all about. It's about, trust, earning that trust, and that's what authenticity engenders in people. But we're still talking about words on paper, and so I asked, but how do consumers feel? And consumers is a marketing word for people. How do people feel? Because people actually have to live that Google trend graph, the graph that we just shared. And so I thought about people, the people experience. I love this quote from the book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. I was really honored to be here with President Ono, because this is what he talked about. But to me, this says it is hard work. We all live this every day from moment to moment. Do I do the right thing here? What choice do I make here? And it is hard work. And the reason it's hard work is because of this next quote. This has sometimes been attributed to Mother Teresa. It's actually from the Paradoxical Commandments, and it says, honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. That it makes us vulnerable, and Dr. Ono talked about that. He said, why do people don't follow servant leadership? Because it's risky, and it is. It's risky to say that you're wrong. It's risky to make the wrong choice, but do it anyway. So to me, this is sort of, these two quotes say what it is to live and to try to live authentically. We heard from other brands. We certainly probably have examples, as do other people. We fail. We fail a lot because it is so hard, but it's worth doing. And this tension here between, as it relates to authenticity, it's this tension between who I am and who I think I'm supposed to be. We find that great brands solve important tensions, and all brands do it in different ways, and they solve different tensions. But for us, we really like this idea. In our small way, we're just whiskey. We're not solving world hunger, but in our way, we can solve a tension for a consumer, because Jack Daniel's, by nature of its being true to itself and its striving to live up to this authentic brand that it embodies, tells the consumer that they themselves can do that as well in that moment, in that occasion, when they're faced with a brand choice. It allows them to feel as though they're staying true, but it's also acceptable to others. And so that solving of the tension is an important point that the brand does, but it does so by remaining true. So solving tensions is something that we believe helps us, and we do it through authenticity. So what do we believe? How do we articulate it? We put it in pretty simple terms. We believe, Jack Daniel's believes, that the world would be a better place if more people would celebrate being true to themselves. So it's really giving our brand over to the consumer, and we live up to ourselves, and we encourage other people to live up to their own self and to be authentic. So it's a pretty straightforward belief, but it is a bit higher level than we're just whiskey, because the truth of the matter is we are now a lot more than whiskey, and that's a great place to be. I wanted to be interactive. If I could pick this up and walk around, I would. I'd rather do that, but I wanted, and we won't capture it here, but I want you to take these hashtags, and I want to hear from you, because after this conference, the great thing about Twitter is it lives on, and I can go search it, and we can all continue a conversation, which would be great. So what do you think authenticity is? I wanted to share the Interbrand definition because I really, really, really like it. An authentic brand is soundly based on an internal truth, has a defined heritage and well-grounded values so that it can deliver against its customers' high expectations. I really like that definition, that internal truth of a brand. I think what we were hearing earlier today were about brands that lost that truth, that it's still there, it didn't go away, they moved away from it. So finding your internal truth is something that we very much believe in. So I'm really anxious to have you comment and read these after on Twitter with these hashtags. So I talked about authenticity, got us to some sort of common definition. But then I think, as you said in the panel, you have to do it. So what is it that we do at Jack Daniel's? We have a few tools in our toolbox, and we start with our brand purpose. So we articulate our brand purpose that Jack Daniel's exists. Why do you exist as a brand? We exist to inspire adults to live life on their own terms. Why? Because we think the world would be a better place if everyone would do that. So this brand purpose is sort of at the tip of an iceberg, and it's what we use as a filter to look at the programs we run, the things that we do, and how we act and behave as a brand. So very important, a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears goes into getting to your brand purpose, and something that probably for most brands, it's what a consumer would say when they first think of you, or what image it conjures in their mind. But it takes a lot of work to get to it. But it's not as simple as that either. We go a level under the iceberg, and that's our brand values. So there's a lot of ways to live life on your own terms. You can do a lot of bad things if you have that sort of mentality. But what makes our brand different, and what brand values do for you, is they provide guidelines. And so how do you live life on your own terms? For us, you have to have independence, authenticity, and integrity. And they're kind of interlinked. You can't sort of give up one or the other. So these values sort of serve as guardrails for us. If you're going to be authentic, if you're going to be independent and you're going to go out and be sort of a loner, well, you're not living very authentically. If you're going to be irresponsible with our product, well, that's doesn't show very much integrity. So these are the things that anchor us and the way we look at our brand and the programs that we do. Storytelling. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this. Storytelling is really the heart of the matter for us, and how we tell our consumers what our values are and what our purpose is. We don't say to our consumer, Jack Daniels exists to affirm that you live life on your own terms. We show them. We sell, or we tell, don't sell. So back in the 1950s, when Jack Daniels was a very, very small brand, the dominant form of advertising is Fortune magazine, True magazine, men in their smoking jackets, sorry, but it was primarily men, in nice studies with fancy bottles. And Jack Daniels advertising didn't look appreciably different than this. So it was really cutting against sort of type. And it was sort of that internal belief of, we have a great story to tell, let's tell our story, and the rest will follow. And so tell, don't sell is something that we continue today to take to heart. How is our advertising? How is our marketing? Telling the story, the true stories that actually exist. I've been to Lynchburg. I've heard the question asked, how many people work at Jack Daniels? About half of them. So we hear that all the time, and we tell that story in this particular ad. You have to demonstrate your values. Again, it's not as simple as saying Jack Daniels is independence. This is one of my favorite ads. Mr. Jack never followed the crowd, but they were always welcome to stop by. So this to me is sort of that balance. Never followed the crowd. There are a lot of examples, and we go in lots of different places in our marketing telling the stories of how Mr. Jack did not follow the crowd. He was the first to say, I'm going to put my whiskey in a square bottle. I don't want round bottles. He stuck with the way that he made his whiskey, which is a process called charcoal mellowing that we still do today, when a lot of other distillers drop that. So there's depth to that story. And then it's anchored on the other side of that statement, but they were always welcome to stop by. So if we just tell you, Mr. Jack never followed the crowd, you're missing that authenticity piece. They were always welcome to stop by. And so just a great blend of demonstrating our values in a few short words and a few pictures. So demonstrating our values through our communications. Create common language. Someone stopped me today and said their father was so excited because they're a squire, a Tennessee squire. That is a probably fairly little known group of people who are brand lovers, and who, as part of their membership, they have to be nominated by someone. They have to live up to a certain set of expectations in whoever nominates them's eyes of their passion for Jack Daniels. And those are our brand lovers. And part of storytelling allows us to create common language. And so this is a true story about Mr. Jack. He did go to work early one day in the early 1900s. He lost the combination to the safe where he kept his papers. He got angry. He kicked the safe. It broke his toe, set up infection. Medicine wasn't where it was today, and he ended up dying. Moral of the story, never go to work early. So, this is a story that our brand lovers know. Other people may know the story that Jack Daniels is made in at Dry County. That's something I've heard a lot of people say to me, and it's true. These common stories and common language are incredibly important because they bind us to our consumers, and they're really their stories as much as they are our stories. And that's a great thing to have. Storytelling allows us to stand out, kind of related to tell, not sell, but standing out in our creative, in our communications, in our programming is very important. It's a very cluttered marketplace, particularly with spirits advertising. Not many people, in my view, are telling deep brand stories that really bind consumers. So we believe storytelling allows us to stand out in that cluttered marketplace. And finally, storytelling allows us to endure. We have been around for over 150 years, and storytelling is generational. You tell stories to your consumers, they tell stories to their friends, and on and on and on through generations. So we think it allows us to endure and live up to our brand purpose. I think I'm also going to share with you a couple of TV spots that show some of this come to life. So I'll show it and then talk about it.
While stocks rise and fall, elections come and go. Summer, fall, winter, and spring. With birthdays, funerals, and everything in between. While the world turns and the moon casts a watchful eye from above, we'll be right here in Lynchburg, making Jack Daniels the same way we always have. The best way we can.
Very different. I mean, you don't see a lot of advertising. I don't think that's as, cuts through quite like that does. It's a pause in your day when you're watching a TV show and that comes on. At least it is for me. And so it's all true. It's all not more than a film crew in Lynchburg, Tennessee, capturing what happens in Lynchburg, Tennessee, and bringing that to the world. So it's sort of storytelling at its finest. This next spot is our holiday themed spot, and very similar theme. It's what happens in Lynchburg, Tennessee around the holidays.
It's not what's under the tree that matters. It's who's around it.
So, really, that's warm and fuzzy for me. But if you go to Lynchburg, Tennessee around late November, that's what will be happening. They'll raise a barrel tree, as they call it, in the town square, and you can meet many of those people that you saw, and you can eat at that restaurant that you saw through in that commercial. So it's a really honest way of communicating that people really, really relate to. And I think demonstrates how we try to stay true to our values in our communications and ultimately communicate our brand purpose. Another way that we do it, another tool in the toolbox is product and design. And I know that's part of the theme of the conference. So, this is a slide few people probably have thought about or seen, but this is the Jack Daniel's bottle through the ages. Really very little change. When you say Jack Daniel's, that bottle, whichever one there I show you, you probably say, yeah, that's the Jack Daniel's bottle. So we have this great iconic package and iconic product, and the product in the bottle is very important as well. We must stay true to it. So as we think about new products, which is also important, we have this tension, this creative tension. And it's really, how do you stay true to an iconic brand, an iconic product, but also stay relevant? Tastes do change. That product is doing quite well. Jack Daniel's Tennessee Whiskey, black label that everyone knows and loves. But times change and the world turns and people's tastes often shift. And that happened probably 5 years ago. We noticed that people, not everybody who likes whiskey, can drink whiskey, but they like the brand Jack Daniel's. And we noticed that the flavor trend, which is really being driven a lot by millennials, has continued. They grew up with a lot of flavored products, and that started to permeate the spirits world. It was sort of easy to dismiss at first if you think about, whipped cream flavored vodka, a little bit, not really true to Jack Daniel's. But you can't ignore it either. One of our highest ambitions is to make every adult a friend of Jack's, and to do that, you have to stay relevant and offer them occasionally a variety of products. So about that time, the question was, how do we do this with this iconic brand that we're so intent to stay true to? And that begot Tennessee Honey, and I'll share sort of the brand communication that went with it. But I think what you can see of this package design and this creative here shows you I can tell you there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting that package right, even though it looks so natural. It looks like what it should look like, which is what it is, a little bit of honey and a whole lot of Jack. And that is what the consumer wanted. Some consumers wanted a little bit of flavor, but they did not want to lose Jack Daniel's because that's a brand they love. So we've invited a whole new audience of consumers, of women, of multicultural consumers who previously just said, you know, I love Jack Daniel's, I do, I love the brand. I don't drink it straight. I might drink Jack and Coke, but you know, this is now a product I can enjoy, and that surprising and delighting those consumers was phenomenal. The brand is the first brand, probably one of the most successful innovations in our industry, and is now a 1 million case brand some 3 years after introduction. Very, very quick growth. And so a really interesting story, but the real part of the story that I think you would be interested to know is what happened to Black Label, the classic brand. And those consumers, those squires who love Jack Daniel's Black Label, it went up. It didn't decline. The love for our brand intensified, and the growth of that brand continued and actually increased as we found success with Tennessee Honey. So that is about the best win-win story that you can find. So that's an instance of a new product that's really rooted in finding relevance with consumers, but trying to do your best to stay true to your brand as you launch that new product. On the other hand, we have this product here, Jack Daniel's Sinatra Select, and that's really about a product that's rooted in a brand story. And so there is a brand story there. Frank Sinatra was, in the 50s, one of the original fans of Jack Daniel's because the brand was very hard to find. It was a very niche brand in that era. The story goes he was introduced to it by Jackie Gleason in New York in the 40s. If you don't know Frank Sinatra's career, he was actually kind of had a dip in the late 40s. He was introduced to the brand during that time, and not long after that, not connected, but not long after that, he had a great rise. And so, but he had adopted it on his own. There was no, there were no paid spokesman for Jack Daniel's back then. But it just created this friendship that he loved the brand. He later, in the 60s, met one of our first salesmen. So Jack Daniel's was so small, we actually didn't sell it until that time. And we had a salesman in the 60s by the name of Angelo Lucchese, and Angelo and Frank became fast friends, and the relationship went on until both of them, unfortunately, have passed. But what a great story. What a great true story, and a way to honor probably one of the greatest entertainers of our lifetime with his own special bottle. And so that was another project that I think kind of shows how the brand can innovate. This is a very luxury product, so we're playing at a $150 price point, and everything from the product to the package to the marketing lives up to that, and that is a pretty high standard. So I'm going to share with you how we brought these two products to market, and you'll see hopefully some of those same lessons of creative coming through here. I'll come back to that. That's a badass bee. That's what we call him. And what a way to sort of stay true to who everyone thinks of when they think of Jack Daniel's when you're launching a flavored product. So very, very successful there. And here's the story of Jack and Frank.
Frank Sinatra was a man. No,
good to hear his voice again. And that's true. He said that about Jack Daniels, and he was buried with a bottle of it, as testified by a lot of his family members who were there. That you just can't buy that type of authenticity, and telling those stories is really what allows us to make those connections for consumers and to be true about it. I had a slide. I won't go back because I don't want to mess up the technology, but the slide said, do all that is necessary and no more. And that's sort of how I feel about when we leverage product and design, because it is important to stay relevant, to stay true to our consumers and give them what they want, but don't do too much of it, because I think that's a slippery slope. So I think we've struck that balance quite well so far. What does it mean to our business? I think it's great to be an authentic brand. I think it's, in fact, probably necessary today, but it's not enough if it doesn't also impact your business and allow you and sustain you as a product and a brand to be around for a long time. So I'm going to talk about what I think authenticity does for our business. It starts with this small little town in Lynchburg, Tennessee, population 361 back in the day. We're all the way up to about 500 these days. And it's true, this small town produces now 14 million cases that is shipped around to 170 countries, the #1 selling whiskey brand in the world. I think Mr. Jack would be proud and probably somewhat shocked that his brand that he started is now that big and is the #1 selling whiskey in the world. Authenticity is worth paying for, and Jack Daniels is now one of the top brands by value and volume. And you just see the rise over any period of time from the 80s to today, continuing to be a premium, high-value brand. And I believe the reason people will pay for it is because we are who we say we are, and we are an authentic brand. So I think it has a lot to do with our premium staying power. It allows us to diversify our portfolio from 94% of our volume in 2004 being from that one Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey to now that's down to 83%. And all this new growth has opened up. By the way, that 83% is still growing significantly around the world in the high single digits. So it's really the best of both worlds. I believe it's because we are an authentic brand, we've earned that trust that we're allowed to do this, that we're allowed to diversify and offer new products and find new markets of people who are willing to give them a try and adopt them. The geographic diversification of our business. 2004, over half of our business is in the U.S. Now over half of our business is international. Authenticity is a human truth. It doesn't matter what culture you are. It's something we can activate in every market around the world. Authenticity gives us this geographic diversity. And I'm proud to say we are recognized for that. I think this is a 2013 list because you see we're at 86 and you see Johnny Walker at 82. I'm maybe the first to announce, but I'm going to say it because I'm proud of it. We've passed Johnny Walker. We are now the most valuable interbrand whiskey in the world. Very, very proud of that and that recognition. So it's just fantastic that we get that. Our desire is to keep it for another 150 years. I think this is my last slide. I think it's a video. What I want to show you is when a brand stays true, as I believe we've done, and you see the creative that I've shared with you today, in that creative you won't see a lot of, you won't see celebrities a whole lot. Frank Sinatra may be different. That's a true story, but you won't see a lot of hype, I would call it. But what I'm about to show you is what happens when a brand stays true and what culture does with a brand like that.
Where's your
He needs you for a mission.
Tell him I'm retired.
You want to do a couple shots? Go.
Jack and I had a very good relationship in its purest form.
Wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. Put my glasses on out the door. I'm gonna hit this city. Before I leave, brush my teeth with a bottle of Jack. 'Cause when I leave for the night, I ain't coming back.
What did your one go-to item on the plane?
Probably Jack Daniels.
You recorded it, or Frank Sinatra at Capitol
At
Records?
Capitol Records with Sinatra's microphone. Still smelled of starlit perfume and
Jack
tobacco.
Daniels.
Yeah.
That's the neck of the gods, baby.
The story of Jack being the story of a man.
So when a Hollywood scriptwriter or a rock musician or anyone else wants to communicate something about their character or about who they are, it's interesting that they turn to the little brand produced in Lynchburg, Tennessee, Jack Daniels. I think they do it because it stands for authenticity. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Matt. Does anybody have any questions for Matt?
Do you have samples?
I think there's a cocktail reception.
Yes, at 4:30 we will have some samples.
I look
Go ahead,
forward
in the
to
back.
sampling.
I have a quick one. We noticed before we got started this morning, we were looking at the logo, and I may be crazy, but I felt like I noticed something weird happening with the K. Has anyone asked you about that weird cutout on the right of the K? Is it a face?
Is it a face?
Yeah.
No, I've not heard that
Okay, it was
before.
just me.
I've not heard that before.
This is proof we need good
We have,
questions
you
from the
know,
audience.
have-
I was scraping the bottom of the Jack Daniels barrel.
We do have
right.
one in the back. Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, this will be a genius question after that. Just kidding. No, I've always been curious about the significance of or the story behind old number 7. What's that?
Yeah. Another story, another opportunity for storytelling. The truth is, nobody knows. Jack took that secret to his grave. But what a great story. And there are probably 20 versions of that story. The one that I believe the most, I will share with you, is that back in the day, he shipped his whiskey via train, and it went from Lynchburg, Nashville, St. Louis, out west. And he had a customer who sent back some whiskey, sorry, his customer did not get his whiskey. So he ordered it, the shipment went out, and he didn't get it. He wrote Jack, and he said, didn't get the whiskey that I wanted, and Jack sent another barrel out there. And lo and behold, both barrels arrived, and one arrived under the number 7, and the other one had a different number. And he wrote back to Jack and said, I really like the old barrel that he was supposed to get, the old number 7 barrel. And so I think that's a great story. There's a story about Jack had 7 girlfriends. There's a story about Jack had, that there was a tax number that was 7, sort of a similar thing of an old and new. And he wanted to communicate to his customers, this is the same, so it's the old number 7 versus some new number that they may have been assigned by the government. So rich storytelling, and one of my favorite, I didn't say this, but one of my favorite places in the world to go is the London Underground. And if you ever go to London, if you've ever been, you've seen those Jack Daniel advertisements, some of them telling the story of old number 7. In the London Underground, as people have 2 to 3 minutes to wait for their train. Service is not that great on your phone, so you just stand there and people in London know our brand better than anybody because of that, and a great testament to the storytelling we do.
What advice would you give to a brand whose identity hinges on being the dark horse and the alternative, who's now come into prominence, had good fortune, and is no longer that young rebel?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to some of the principles that I talked about, but I think, it is, someone said earlier, it's easy to be an upstart. It's easy to be authentic when you're, producing basically maybe 50 cases in our category, a few cases of spirit product. It's harder as you get bigger. And I think the key is know your purpose. I think we've shown that you can stay true to a purpose and endure and grow as we have. So I think it starts with that, and then those brand values and not losing your way, which is the hardest thing. One of the reasons I think we have been able to do it for so long is that although we are publicly traded, we're primarily we've been owned by two families, the Jack Daniel family and now the Brown family of Brown-Forman. Those are two family companies, and family companies tend to have different time horizons, and so they're willing to take some short-term pain for the good of the brand. And it's the hardest thing to do in the world is to grow, and we're seeing lots of brands in our space and other spaces that are going through those growing pains. But for me, it starts with know your purpose, know your values, and live them every day, even when it's hard.
Fun one. How do you answer the question, whiskey or bourbon?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's the story, and we can talk more at cocktail hour if you're interested. The saying is all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. And then I would add to that, because we are a Tennessee whiskey, we meet all the standards of bourbon with an extra step, and that's what I talked about earlier. That's the charcoal mellowing process. So bourbon has a set of identity of how it's made. You can make a lot of things and call it whiskey. You can make very few things and call it bourbon based on a set of criteria, and there's only really one way to make Tennessee whiskey. One of the big differences is we only use new barrels, and that's true of bourbon, and that's true of Tennessee whiskey. You may have seen some media about that in the past couple of years. There's been a bit of controversy of people wanting us to or allow for Tennessee whiskey to be made in a used barrel. And of course, we fought for that one and won. And Tennessee whiskey can only be made in a brand new barrel versus we send a lot of our barrels once they're used over to the Scotch and the Irish. And you guys make great product with it after we get all the good flavor out of it. So, yeah. Great.
How does the brand story and the authenticity, the striving to tell that story, impact who you hire at your company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's most evident when you go to Lynchburg. Hopefully a few of you have had a chance, and if you haven't, we'd love to have you down there. That's the most consumer-facing place where you live the brand, and what we find is we hire people who live in Lynchburg, Tennessee, most often, or are good fits there, because it's their brand, and everyone there has pride in what they do. Again, because they're making that one product that's iconic for everyone around the world. And then, it's passion. We heard that word earlier. It's people who have passion for the brand, who embody the same values that we stand for. So anytime there's been a mismatch, it's usually because there's a values mismatch. And we find that a lot of the people who have those values live in and around Lynchburg. That being said, we get a lot of requests for how do I get a job at Jack Daniel's? I'll retire and move there. And we do have people who've done that, who serve as our tour guides or who do lots of things in Lynchburg that if you go and experience, I think you'll experience that hospitality and you'll find that they live the brand every day. Mm-hmm.
How do you maintain the authenticity through some of the other external partnerships and licensing activities that you have, like Jack Daniel's barbecue sauce?
Yeah, That's it's a great question. I think the first thing I would say to that is, as marketers, we have sort of this level of permission for the brand. As consumers, their permission for the brand may be as big as this room compared to as marketers. And we have to balance that. So we can't, just because a consumer likes and wants something, we can't just always give that to them. So what we try to find is those overlaps of what the brand stands for, what consumers already believe about us, and that fit with our values, that we can overlap with some of those external partnerships. Many of you may know we do partner with TGI Fridays, and they've done a lot of work with, and it's been very successful for them with the Jack Daniel's menu. But that's something people, they love it. I mean, it's one of the most talked about things about our brand is how they touch our brand through food. And food is a very emotional and important category for our consumers. So it's trying to find those places where it makes sense, where they give us permission, but where we as marketers aren't uncomfortable with our small window of what we would love to remain as pure as we can. But you can do that and position yourself into oblivion. So we find that balance, and we think we strike it pretty well with what we do partner with. We say we say no a lot more times than we say yes, despite what you see out there.
I do have one question. I'm curious the role that Brown-Forman plays with Jack Daniel's.
It's a good story. If you go back to when the Jack Daniel family, their last name was actually Motlow because Jack didn't have any children, so he left the distillery to his nephew, Lem Motlow. So the Motlow family in the 50s, the brand was starting to grow really rapidly. And in our industry, it takes a long time to make whiskey, to age it to a level that it's ready to be called Jack Daniel's and then put it out there. A lot of people are finding that out today as they try to launch new craft whiskey brands. And so what they did was they needed capital, and they decided it was time to sell. They had multiple offers to buy Jack Daniel's, and the Brown family offer was not as high as other offers, but they chose the Brown family to purchase their brand. The reason I tell that story is because the reason they picked the Brown family is because of similar values, and the way Brown-Forman manages Jack Daniel's is the way I think any family member would manage maybe a child or something. It's out of love. It's letting that brand do what that brand does, but sort of providing support when needed as a parent company. But I think it's that family relationship that allows Brown-Forman to have taken that brand and grown it the way they have. So
your brand has experienced so much growth. How do you keep it going? What does the future look like? And also, what are some of the pitfalls or threats to that growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a very bright future. I think just in our industry, the majority of the world, you think about the world at large, two things are going to happen. One, the middle class is going to just really, really expand, most of that coming from emerging markets. So we're going to have a lot of consumers who are looking for brands, and they're looking for authentic brands. That is good in our favor. The other thing is much of the rest of the world, whiskey means Scotch, and people are discovering American whiskey for the first time in a lot of cases. And so, if you just do the math on the amount of people that are going to come into the middle class and the amount of whiskey drinkers who are going to say, Scotch has been around for a long time in this country and generations. I'm going to try something different, which is a great place to be for Jack Daniel's, being a little bit different and independent. We think we have a very bright future ahead. We really haven't scratched the surface. So I think we feel very good about the future. Pitfalls, I think, are some of the lessons we heard earlier today, anything that would cause the brand to stray from its brand purpose. I think there's a temptation to take the brand and try to fight every battle with it, which can sometimes happen. And that's something we try to resist. You can't fight every single battle and every single competitor with the same thing. And so you'll be, I think we try to find different ways to fight those battles, whether it's different products or sometimes just saying, no, we're not gonna play in that space. Okay. Thank you all very much. I've been delighted to be with you
very
today.
much. Thanks. And I'll turn it over to Rebecca.
I've been scolded that we really should be using the mics as much as possible. It's at Carolyn's level. It's more like mine. Okay. So, wow, Matt, we're so glad you were able to join us. Thank you very much for that. So, we sit and we listen, then we go play. We sit and we listen, so you know what's coming next. We get to go play again. And so I want to tell you for just a couple of minutes about the second exercise, which is called Authentic Brand Expansion. So we got to play that we were brand managers managing a brand that was straying a little, right, from its authenticity, straying a little from a point of trust. And that's maybe the sort of thing that when we are managing brands is most likely to happen. But what's really cool to do when you get the chance is to create a brand from scratch. That's fun. And that's what we're going to do in the next exercise, so we're going to play even more. So we don't have much time, right? So we couldn't just tell you, go, think something up. So you'll be in 4 teams again, and each team will have what I call a brand seed, like a little idea. And I think Matt mentioned this during his comments, that when a brand is small, when it's, you know, out of your garage, it's your 50 cases, it's really easy to be authentic. So the 4 brands that you guys will be tackling are that. They're small. 2 of them are real, and 2 of them are fictional, and we're honest about which is which. You'll find out in your room. They're really authentic. There's something real going on there, and your task is to take it national and keep it that way. And so I think you can see that's going to be a real lot of fun to work on. So again, you will look at your name tag, as before, to figure out the second place name. If it said Unmuseum before and it says gallery now, you're going to the gallery, right? And when you get there, your facilitators, they've scurried off again. When you get there, it'll be different facilitators, a different place, and a different crowd of people as much as we could make it. You're all mixed up, and they will direct you. Before you go, I need to remind you again that you're not allowed to take any water bottles or anything from down here up into the museum, because it is a museum. And also I want to let you know that Matt and his colleagues, in their kindness, have given us some things of Jack Daniels. Unfortunately, not everyone in this room is 21, and so the things are not Jack Daniels. I am sorry. However, on your way out, at a table by the door, you will find 2 lovely Jack Daniels gifts that Matt has shared with us. Please be sure to take yours, okay? Thank you. Go have fun.